You are now listening to the podcast for geeks and the stuff they love, where each week we'll talk about everything from anime to movies, games, and prop collecting with the people who create and love it. I'm Jeromy.
I'm Vinz.
I'm James.
And this is your Geek Fix.
I don't know how much people even pay attention to it. I film a lot of my videos. I'll film in the same day.
Yeah.
And so I'll be wearing the same thing. I don't think anyone's really ever called me on it. But you know,
the Ghostbusters thing was a bit of a giveaway.
Yeah. It looked like you were stuck in your outfit.
I think if it's just you on your own, it's a little bit easier to say, well, you might have just been wearing the same shirt 2 weeks.
It's just random.
If it's three of us, it's a bit...
Yeah.
They're all wearing
I'm
the same
pretty
shirts.
open. I think I told people in the last episode, I was like, yeah, just so you know, we don't film these over time. So
this is my
Vince is stuck in his
shirt,
shirt.
and I never
did
watch
take
it.
off the outfit after the one episode, but
Yeah.
There's something clicking. Can you guys hear the clip?
Oh, sorry, that's me with a little clip.
Stop that.
I will defend when people ask us saying that you force us to wear the same clothes.
That's right. Yeah, there you go. That's what it's saying. I like
Contractually obliged.
contingency. Yeah, this is our month. This is our outfit for the month. This is the thing.
Jeromy ships us shirts that we have to wear.
Yeah.
And makes us go back to the same recording situation. So I have to be...
We do have merch for this channel that I've never posted the links for. Never show the. I'm so bad at doing the I also have links that are for. Yeah, I mean, I haven't done any of that, but I do have. I have a shirt that has the sock puppet that was in one of the. It was in one of the Pip-Boy videos. There was a sock that and I can't remember what his name was, but I did like a club shirt, like the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse shirt.
Oh yeah,
that's my favorite one. Nobody knows it's out there, but you could technically go to the link and buy
it. Look,
it is somewhere. But yeah. So, but it would be funnier if I got the merch and we were always wearing the same merch. But anyway,
you have to wear that next month, I guess, James.
Yeah, it's
that's fine.
We have to wear this stuff to push it. Yeah. LTT store. We ought to get stuff from other channels instead. Don't forget your lttstore.com shirts and your.
We can all be wearing Trash Taste stuff.
That's right, and Trash Taste. Actually, I have some Trash Taste stuff. I do have some of Connor's clothes, as well as
Joey
Anime Man's. Yeah, I have some of his stuff. He's turned out Joey stuff.
I bought the LTT screwdriver this week.
Did you really?
Yeah.
It's supposed to be really good, but I don't know.
I saw Lazy Game Reviews use it in one of his videos. I'm like, well, I'm screwing all the screws, so might as well get the best there is.
I have these fancy kits. All the I have the iFixit stuff. I have all these different things. What are the screwdrivers I use most? I use the one that came with the not with the Pip-Boy. I use the one that came with the speaker, with the stand. I use that one for everything, and then I use these stupid screwdrivers. Yeah, the screwdrivers that came with my Iron Man and my I don't know, these that are lower. Actually, the one that came with the stuff from Fallout, that's pretty quality. But yeah.
I got a Leatherman Wave that has a screwdriver that I use a lot because I have it on me, which is inspired by Adam Savage because he has one. I'm really influenced by other people. So I also have a Weeha screwdriver that Deviant Olaf uses in his penetration testing kit.
So
that's also a YouTuber that I follow. And it's a really nice one. It has an extendable shaft, so you can click it and it just pops open.
That's cool.
And you can pull it out and put some other stuff in there, and it's really helpful. Good stuff. But I'm curious to see how the LTT screwdriver holds up.
Yeah, you have to let us know. Well, and speaking of which, so none of this is the topic of what we're talking.
Our topic is being off topic.
We're probably going to let it be inside the video, actually. So the thing that we were wanting to talk about a little bit is, something we kind of touched base on before a little bit. I think even with Dan Lanigan, one of the episodes, I had Dan Lanigan on, and we talked a little bit about how he's into comics lately and stuff, and how he's accessing those. Manga for me, I something I really want to know also from the audience. I should have ran a poll. Is how many of you that read manga also watch the same shows? Or how many of you, for me, it's hard because I don't want to read manga, for example, on One Piece or something like that, because it's going to tell me everything that's going to happen. You know what I mean? There are some out there that don't follow the same arcs or anything like that, but at the same time, I'm always nervous about wanting to look ahead or reading things that are gonna ruin it for me, or ones if I like it more than I do the show, or I like the show more than I do the manga, that sort of thing. But how do you access your comics or your manga? Like, what are the ways that you guys have been doing it?
So me personally, I have only ever been gifted manga. I've never actually purchased manga for myself. And then all the other manga that I've read has been on my phone using the Tachiyomi app.
Oh, Tachiyomi, yeah. Okay.
If specifically the J2K version, just because I thoroughly enjoy the look and feel of that app.
Okay. What's better about that app? Like, what's the look and feel aspect?
I think because it's been out for a while now and it's been through quite a few updates. I think it was just the color scheme and the general format of the 3 tabs that really called out to me in comparison to the other one. Because I originally for manga reading I was using Manga Rock until that eventually shut its servers down. And then I was extremely stressed because I had to try and find somewhere else to start reading my manga. And I found this one just out of the blue, and I wouldn't change for anything. Like, if this ever stopped development, or if the sources that I use stop working, it's got a local manga part as well. So if I have mangas downloaded, I can just upload it onto that and just read it directly through that app. So it's always the same app, even if it's online or if it's
Is
local.
it page to page, or is it cell to cell? Like, how's it oriented? How does it run?
In my specific case, it's page to page.
Is it? Okay.
And it's completely modifiable so that you can have it either reading from left to right, or you can have it right to left, which is more of a manga.
So for those of you out there that aren't aware, in the case of manga, the Japanese style would be from right to left. So you're going from what would look like the back of the book, going left, but then also the cells, for that reason, you're following in a different direction. That's what I was wondering about. Like, if it did it cell to cell, or if it was you held the whole page. Okay. Well, that's very cool.
I don't know if it has an option to set it up to read it cell by cell, just because in this app, at least, it's typically just an image. Like, it doesn't go into the image and find all of the different cells.
Right.
I imagine there are some apps that do it that way, but seeing as it's not something that really calls out to me.
There's some standard comics that I've done online that have been cell to cell. Like, you click the arrow on the right and it goes to the next one. I haven't seen any manga that's been that way. But on the flip side, there's some manga too where you have a center cell that's between the 2 pages. So I don't know how it does that. Like, you must only be able to see half the cell in that case. But
it does explain why Goku turned into a little kid when I was reading Dragon Ball then.
That's clever.
The mystery finally explained.
Yeah. Like, I don't understand. Seems like everything's going backward in this.
Yeah, I don't know.
This is a real Benjamin Button situation.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. It's I think there are people that pick them up though and not know better when they first start going through them how to read it, because it is an adjustment, admittedly, but at the same time. So online or is that also how you do comics and things if you do them, or
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just because it's so easily available, and it's relatively cheaper than going out.
What would you say you're into right now? Like, what would be your recommended reading?
So recently I'm going into the list of all of them. So the one that I'm reading currently, and I'm 11 chapters away or 1 volume away from being completely up to date, is Made in Abyss.
Tell us about it.
So Made in Abyss, I originally watched the anime, and then the anime finished, and that was it. Like, there was no update that there was going to be any second season or anything. But they had movies come out, so they had 3 films. The first 2 just being recaps of the first season, and then this, the third film being an actual continuation, and then the second season, which is just been released. I think it released either last year or the year before, maybe. So the general concept is that it's our world in the sense that it is the Earth. And on a specific island, there is a giant pit which goes all the way down. Don't know how far. I think in the manga, at the moment there are like 35,000 meters or 35,000 feet down or something along those lines.
Yeah.
But it's that nobody knows why this hole exists or why this abyss exists, nor what is down there. So the people that are on the island decide to start going down there and like looking around. And there are lots of relics and lots of treasures and lots of primordial creatures, which are only present on this island and in the abyss. But the one interesting kick is that the further you go down into the abyss, if you try and come up, depending on what level you're on, because they divide 7 different levels depending on the depth. If you go from level 1 back to the surface, the person is hit with nausea, like they're a bit woozy and so on. If you go from level 2 to level 1, it's extreme nausea. If you go from level 3 to level 4, you start bleeding out of every orifice. If you go from
the case of the bends, basically.
You go to level 4 to level 3, I think it was something along the lines of you start having extreme hallucinations, I think. And then from 5 to 4, it was something else, and then from 6 to 5 is like you lose your humanity. So you don't you turn into a hollow, as they call them, which is just like a beast. It can be one of the characters being a pile of goo, I guess you could say, or just whatever.
Yeah.
And the main plot is that one of the characters, her mother, is supposedly all the way at the bottom of the abyss, and so she's trying to go down and follow after and see if she can meet up with her mother, who she's never met. And and that's, I'm enjoying that at the moment. The other one that I've been reading recently, I'm fully up to One Piece, like every week or every.
Are you really?
Excellent. Yeah.
So, I mean, the show has deviated at times, and sometimes it's gone into either more detail and longer, and at other times it'll skip over whole things that were inside the manga. So I mean, in the past it hasn't been like you could read one and watch the other, and it'd be slightly different, and you could be in the. But right now, I feel like it's getting so in line. It'd be impossible not to have spoilers if you are planning on watching it as well. Does that not ruin it, or for you? I mean, what do you feel?
I personally, specifically for One Piece, I don't watch the anime. Not for any specific reason, just because I started with the manga, and I remember reading like over a summer. I read like 600 chapters or something like that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. There are just some things that I just can't watch the anime. Just not like sometimes for the animation, just because the animation doesn't do it for me. But what you're saying about reading the manga and then not being able to watch the anime, I have had that for some shows that I've just felt that I know what the story is, so that's it. But there are other ones. So, for example, Fire Force, which is a very good manga and anime. I originally watched the anime, and I decided to then continue with the manga because I thought that season 3 was going to take forever to be released. But I would go back and watch season 3 when they release it, just because of the animation, like because of how good the fight scenes are. Or like, there are many cases.
There's some that are just pretty to see, if nothing else. I think for me, the thing that's actually been ruined in the past is there's been manga that I've read that I didn't know would ever be turned into a show, or that it was a show already. Actually, I just didn't have access to it and didn't know that it was even available. And then I watched the show, and the voices in my head and the characters' personalities that I had created, were so much different that I didn't like the show for that reason. Or it was like, Spy Family actually is true this way. Like, it's like, that makes more sense actually the way that they did it. But I don't know. Yeah, I'm always interested. It's like people that read books and then watch the movie. It's really I've never been able to be one of those people. Like, I can't say that. I have, but I mean, like, it's such a different thing. If I'm going to watch something, I'm going to watch it for entertainment. I don't want to have it ruined.
I think it depends on the manga/anime adaptation. Like in the same way that you have books that get turned into movies, that if you've read the book before and then watch it, you can be upset by them not being like copying what is the source material and changing it. But I know that in like, I was going to say most anime, but I guess it depends which one. Like most of the ones that I've seen, the mangas have been pretty much just translated into anime. The only few exceptions, like the biggest exception that I can mention, which if anyone's read it or seen it, is The Promised Neverland.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
I read the manga. Because I saw the first season and I was extremely interested in how the story continues. And so for people that don't know, the manga has finished like a few years ago. I don't know if they're coming out with the second season. Well, no, I think they finished the show. But I know because I've been told, not because I watched it.
See, I've only seen the show, so yeah.
I highly recommend you read the manga because
really,
there is a whole section, which I'm not going to go into spoiler territory or anything, but it's basically the name is Goldie Pond, and there is so much character development and just interesting plots that the anime just ignores or skips, which is just so sad. And the same could be said from Soul Eater, if anyone's seen or read
Soul
that.
Eater, that's another good one.
The anime ends after 51 or 52 episodes in an extremely let down way, whereas the manga goes on for a fair while longer, and in my opinion, it's just so much better story.
Get a little bit of background noise going on.
Yeah, sorry.
My favorite episode is the one where we're sitting there talking and some kid or girl or somebody screams like a terrifying scream and your head turns. You just close the window. People around, they're like, shouldn't you guys check on her? Somebody should call the police.
No,
that was pretty good.
Specifically, the other room that I was recording in is right next to the road, and like obviously you have tiny kids just screaming. Just it's normal.
It's normal.
That's just the way it is. Yeah, it's
a European thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I do like. I think the last manga that I accessed, I like only reading single episode or single books. Manga comes in two different forms. More commonly, it's in kind of a book that's about this thick and about this big. And then there's some that are also released that look more like a standard comic book, and that size and things and format. A lot of times they're like special releases, stuff like that. Like One Piece did a bunch of those, or that if you're in Japan, you could get for free if you went to the tower, Tokyo Tower or something like that. But I go on Crunchyroll here in the U.S., which is also how I watch my anime, and in that account, I'm also able to access, different stuff. Before it was in Funimation when I had some involvement in Funimation, so I like the ones I can literally, if I read one episode or read one book. It doesn't matter if I'm jumping in on whatever, because they're episodic. So literally, like, you can start it wherever. It's about the same. One Punch Man, I felt like was very much that way, and I read a few like that were just rando. One of them being before I even ever saw the show, but so I kind of like those sorts of things where I could walk in and not feel like I have to now buy the next one or to access the next one or to spend my time on it. I'll admit, I am horrible at reading things. But at the same time, I do like that, but I don't know. What about comic? What's the last comic that you guys looked at, or have you had any recently, or do you collect anything that way?
Yeah. Let me get one. I backed them.
Oh, you can get one. Oh, okay. Oh, a Kickstarter. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I'm back.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is the book of Nile.
Oh wow, that looks nice.
Barry Jones.
Yeah.
It's I don't know if you know the Modern Rogue with Brian Brushwood and Jason Murphy. Brian put on Twitter that one of his friends, and this is he's a magician from the UK, I believe, and he has how do you say
affiliation or something?
He has a depersonalization disorder, which is apparently an actual
depersonalization disorder. Yeah, it's a real condition. DSM-5. Yep.
Yeah, and so this book basically goes about the main character suffering from that and how it's being portrayed.
Wow, really?
And it does a really deep dive. It's really nicely done. I don't want to get into any spoilers in case someone wants to read it.
Depersonalization is where literally you feel a disconnect between what's happening in reality and yourself. It's almost like watching things from the outside at times.
Yeah, and thinking that there may be a narrator or a script that your life is running on. That kind of stuff. It's very meta. And it's really cool. It's pretty artistic. So for the people looking at it, it's really nicely made.
Yeah, wow.
And it comes with a secret chapter and a little envelope in the back that says, read this if you want to know the real ending or something like that.
Wow. Really?
So it says, reader, do not look inside before the story is over. And then it's a bit of a angel.
So this is it. This is the whole thing. There's not going to be another one after this then.
No. And
kind
the cool
of thing.
Thing is,
Okay.
So this says it. It's in a white box and in a black box. So the first one says, "Reader, do not look inside before the story is over," and the other one says, "Reader, look inside and spoil the surprise." So it's the duality of the comic itself, whether you go for black or white reading it, and it's very meta, going back.
It's like your Matrix pills, huh?
Yeah, but it really dives into the psychology of someone who has this disorder and how they experience it. And it's really mind-bending. So I thought it was really cool to have a comic as a medium for that. And it's pretty well received. So I backed it. I also got a special artwork card from it.
Oh, that's cool.
And, it's really, really cool stuff. I'm not sure if it's available publicly now, but it was a Kickstarter that I backed from Barry Jones.
It's on the Kindle.
Okay,
on
cool.
Amazon.
Oh, it is? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I highly recommend it if you want to have a nice little mind-bending kind of thing, and also look into a mindset that might not be like your own, which I appreciate.
Well, another thing you kind of got some access to. I'm sharing it on the screen right now, but at least I'm trying to.
It's not manga really, but it's a comic related.
So, it's comic related. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the best interpretations I think of Transformers and the characters that come along with the toys, basically, real homage to the toys themselves, is the IDW comic book series, and one of the favorite sub-series written by James Roberts, among other people, is More Than Meets the Eye, and it's basically about Rodimus Prime leaving Cybertron and going on a quest to find the Knights of Cybertron. That's basically the whole story. Well, it's really character driven. It's really deep in lore. It has nice cameos. It has comedy. There's tragedy. I think it's one of the best comics I've ever read, and it's a really pretty difficult.
But you got a special copies of these.
Yeah. So these are 2 notebooks made by James Roberts that he advertised on Twitter, saying, "Well, these are basically summaries or distilleries of the notebooks that he used to write the story." So what happens to Megatron, what happens to Rodimus, the secrets that are involved, the plot lines that they conceptualize. So this is basically the behind-the-scenes book of that comic series, and I purchased them from him directly. They're also signed and addressed to me, which is of course really cool.
Oh, wow.
And he's from Guernsey, which is an island in between France and England, and he suffered a bit from getting all the logistics due to that, because of the fact that Guernsey is part of the European Union, but also uses pounds as currency because it's part of the English conglomerate or something, like it's a crown state or something like that. So there was some things not going too well, but I'm glad that I got my stuff in at least. So shout out to James for this kind of stuff. And if you're looking for a comic, the actual run ended and they rebooted it as a IDW 2018, I think they rebooted it, and now they lost the license, unfortunately, so they're rebooting Transformers altogether. But this the designs for the original designs for the Transformers made based on original characters, based on old characters that we know and love, the plot twists that happen, a lot of the current Transformer toys are inspired by the designs from these comics and the storylines in those comics, and it's a really cool setting. I once backed the Humble Bundle that started off with All Hail Megatron, which is basically what happens if Megatron wins the war on Earth and people are, suffering under the Decepticons.
And he becomes a Nazi.
Well, something like that. Yeah. Well, in such a way. And it goes pretty deep into that. So what does it mean to be overruled by giant robots as a human? And how do you recover from that? And what does it do with the
It's a crossover with Full Metal Alchemist. It's
yeah. No. His head pops open and Hitler's sitting inside.
Yeah.
No.
I'm back.
It's funny.
It's like
it's kind of like the Superman series that was where he's Russian. You guys ever see those back?
Russian
they
Superman?
recently animated it even. Yeah.
Oh.
So he's, instead of landing in the U.S., he landed in Russia, and so he's helping. I'm trying to remember. Somebody else is also in Russia, but and then
Colossus
Batman and Wonder Woman over here, and how he still has to kind of deal with the he has to figure out the difference between serving his state versus what he's seeing when he goes elsewhere, and
interesting
things like that. It's pretty good. That's a classic, actually, Superman series.
Okay,
but yeah, one of those alternate universe kinds of things.
But to get back on topic for the manga bit, at least, I don't read a lot of manga. I have the Persona mangas, Persona 4. I have One Punch Man. And Shinya Shokudo. I don't know if you know that. It's Tokyo Stories Midnight Diner. It's on Netflix, which is
Midnight Diner.
Yeah. It's based on a manga.
Is it really?
Yeah. And they really.
All right, so I'm going to criticize Midnight Diner for a second. Because the whole premise is basically, okay, so this is a diner that opens, late at night, and it's open overnight. And there's a certain group of people that come in all the time, but then there's also these people that he kind of changes their lives in one way or another. There's different things, different phases and stuff. But the thing that bothers me is that whenever they come in, they always come in, and the first thing they'll ask them is, they're like, are you the guy that can basically, you cook everything? Like, there's no set menu. Like, you go in there and you say what you want to cook, and then he makes, and it's something that brings back, a Nasukashi. It brings back, that feeling of when you were young or whatever. But it's always like stupid things. They're like, oh, you can make anything? And he's like, yes. Anything? And he's like, yes. Like, I'd like egg on rice.
Just the default stuff.
I can't make that.
Oh, I don't have that in right now. Sorry. Come on, make something real. Like, something.
I can't
make anything. It doesn't mean I have the ingredients for it.
Yeah. I think once he made cheesy macaroni. And I was like, well, that is surprising. I mean, that was pretty good. But then everything else is always like, okay, but can you make toast with some soy sauce on it?
Yeah.
Whatever.
I like to make pineapple pizza when I'm nostalgic. It's a sushi restaurant. But well, I do think it's pretty soothing and charming little show.
Yeah.
But the cool thing is the characters in that show are pretty close to what's in the manga, or maybe they inspired a bit. But it's pretty fun. They look like.
That's another one though that should be pretty episodic. Like each one is basically, it's focused on the person that came in and their role from, like, I remember there's one that was about a mafia guy is the equivalent, I guess I could say. That goes from being actively part of the Yakuza to what happens to him? Oh, he's dying. There's a lot of it. That's another thing on that. It's usually everybody seems to be dying or something major happens by the end. But within this one episode, it goes from one end to the other. But but it's encapsulated in such a way. I think you could pick up probably any copy in it, and you'd be able to follow it. Because, the basic premise is pretty easy to catch on to. Like, it's a diner, it's open at night, somebody comes in, something happens.
Guy makes everything and leaves.
Yep. And
anything?
then they ask for the same meal over. Yeah. Anything? Okay.
Well, you have to bring your own ingredients. That's the whole deal, right? You can make anything as long as you bring the stuff.
Do you have to bring him in the show? You don't. He's just like, oh yeah, I've got. I'll start making that.
They got bags. If he has it, yeah. But they bring bags of stuff. Yeah.
Like an Amazon warehouse filled with things.
Yeah, he just got this little tiny kitchen too. But he always seemed to always have everything he needs to make whatever it was.
Yeah,
he just knocks it out real quick.
He has a Samsung fridge.
Yeah, it tells him what's good or bad when it is.
Can you make this? Yes, I can now.
Unless everybody's watching all these episodes and remembers what we talk about. These jokes are just for us.
They do a reverse Dragon Ball.
It's true. If you have a manga or comic that you're really into right now, something that you think people shouldn't miss out on, let us know in the comments below. Otherwise, keep watching. If you've enjoyed this podcast and want more, stay tuned for that. Also, check out our channel and join the community on YouTube that goes by the same name, Your Geek Fix. Be sure to check out Vinz on Twitter at MassiveDMG_ and on his YouTube channel, MassiveDMG. Check out James at Mr. Malto4 on Instagram and on the Replica Prop Forum. We also want to hear from you, so be sure to send your stories, questions, and other projects to yourgeekfix@gmail.com. In the meantime, this has been your Geek Fix.